We're just going to take a new ski and we're just going to kind of go through what's kind of good to do to kind of get it going and make it faster and kind of clean it up at the same time. This would sort of be maybe the same thing that we would do if we had a ski that maybe had been sitting around for the summer and we're just pulling it out of our garage or out of our closet someplace. The same thing we usually do with a new ski as well.
And Brian, is this kick wax or glide wax?
This is all going to be glide wax is what we're going to be talking about today. We'll probably try to do another clinic if you're interested on the kick wax of a classic ski. But we're going to go through a skate ski and just getting it ready for skate skiing. What we usually do, if a ski's been sitting around for a while, or sometimes even when we get a new ski in, they have a little bit of dirt or dust, or if a ski's left over from the previous year and we haven't really taken time to put the ski away clean, it can accumulate a lot of dust, or even from the previous season, either pollen or diesel fuel from the grooming machines, and so they can get kind of dirty. So what we usually do is just kind of quickly go over the ski with a little bit of wax remover. And I don't like using a lot of wax remover on a performance ski because it's a little stringent. And what I mean by that is it has a tendency of drying the ski out a little bit. But sometimes, just to take, one kind of wipe of the ski, what I'm using here is a product called Fiberline, and it's a kind of a non-linty type of cloth. And so what we do is we just sort of go over the ski and take some of that dirt off the ski. And again, we can see how we got a little bit of dirt. This is a brand new ski, and we can see how we got a little bit of dirt off of that there. I'm going to sort of kind of keep this whole thing flowing. Usually what you'd want to do after you've done this is to let this dry out of the ski a little bit and evaporate out. Might take 5 minutes, might take 10 minutes or so. And since we're not going to sit and wait for that, we'll kind of keep going. After that, a good method for cleaning the ski above and beyond that is what they call a hot wax or a hot scrape. And what we do is we take a soft wax, non-fluorinated, it's considered a carbon or a paraffin-based wax, where other waxes that we'll talk about a little bit later can have low fluoro in them or high fluoro in them. But this is just plain wax, no fluoro content in it at all. Waxing iron. I usually try to kind of work on all of the phases, kind of from tip to tail. When we put the wax down, particularly on carbon waxes or paraffin waxes, is we want to put a fair amount of wax on there, because we want to have, when we go and put this hot iron onto the ski, we want to have a little layer between the iron and the base of the ski. If we're a little too skimpy with the wax, it kind of gets the base sometimes almost too hot. So we want to make sure we get a good layer in between. And as far as temperature ranges, most of the waxes, will come either on the box or in the packaging, and it'll tell you, what kind of temperature it melts the best at. But I usually find that what you want to do with any of your waxes is you want to make sure that the wax doesn't smoke. If your iron starts smoking, it means that we've gotten the wax too hot and we have to turn our iron down. Softer waxes, like a cleaning wax here, which is a warmer wax rather than a colder wax. Harder wax, colder waxes are harder. You can actually put your fingernail into them. In a warm wax, your fingernail's going to go into it, pretty easily. In a cold wax, it's going to be very, very brittle. So what we want to do, and what's happening here when we're hot waxing a ski, is that the heat of the iron is warming up the base, and the base is not a sealed base. It actually has little pores in it throughout the ski. So as we heat it up, what's happening right now is the pores in that PTEX base are opening. Okay, so right now it's also purging out some of either other waxes that have been in there, dirt that's been in there. And so if we hit it while it's still hot, what it's going to do is it's kind of bringing that wax, percolating up out of the PTEX of the ski. And so if we go at it now, and we only ever really want to use a plastic scraper on a ski. If we use steel or anything else, it's a little too hard on the ski. It can scratch the ski and do damage to it. We're a plastic scraper. We want to keep this scraper good and sharp. They have different kinds of sharpening tools that you can go through and just kind of put a little bit sharper edge onto that. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of, while it's still hot, we're going to go through and scrape that down. Now this ski's a new ski, and I can see that we're not really getting much dirt out of this. Now if this had been a used ski, that we've been using it, you can see a little bit of black in there. This would probably come off very, very dark. And you might want to do this a couple of times. Get all that dirt out of the base. Because as we continue to wax in the new wax, then we'll be pushing that wax back into the base again if it has dirt in it, and we don't want to do that. So we can see that this ski here, and again we're trying to work kind of from tip to tail. And the reason for that is, not only does the PTEX have pores, it also, if we look at it through a microscope, it has little hairs on it. And as we continue to work the ski from tip to tail, we're going to be laying the hairs down on the ski this direction. So as it runs across the snow, it's going to run a lot smoother than if we work this way on the skis, push the hairs this direction, we kind of be going against the grain. So we like to scrape, brush, anytime we work the ski from tip to tail. Okay. I was talking about different kinds of waxes. Waxes, so again, we're just going to kind of go through with this same wax here, and again we want to get a fair amount in. Now when you start using additives or more expensive higher floral waxes, you'll probably have a base of a wax similar to this, and then you'll be building up above this with the more expensive products. And sometimes at that point there, since they are so expensive, you don't want to drip it on quite as much as I did here. So at that point there, what you would do is we call it crayoning. And so at that point we would take the wax, we would heat it up, and we'd sort of just sparingly put it onto the ski and then iron it in. But there again, you have to be a little careful of burning the base, because if you get the base too warm, like I was talking about how it has pores to it, it is an open thing, it's not sealed, and if we get it too hot, we'll actually melt that PTEX and we'll close those pores. And if that happens to a ski, then what we have to do is either scrape it with a metal scraper to scrape off that top layer to reopen those pores, or to take it someplace and get it stone ground where they'll take off the top layer, allow that ski to open up and kind of what I would say breathe again a little bit, to be able to take those waxes. And then I kind of get down in the grooves here a little bit. Some skis have double grooves, some skis have single grooves. Okay. Okay. Now we're going to let this kind of cool a little bit. Another thing you can do with a ski that's either new or slightly dirty is that, let's say after we were done going through with our wax remover, we could take, and there's different kinds of brushes. Here are probably the three most common types, either a steel or a brass or a copper brush, a harder nylon brush, out right now. Or a horsehair brush, like this here. And out of these brushes here, this carbon, steel or copper or brass brush, it would work very well on a ski to go through it, and that will also help clean out the dirt on the ski. And that'll be a good thing to do before we go. Then we could do the hot wax with the warm scrape. Then we could go back through again after we scraped it and do that again. Okay. Again, just because we don't have all the time, even though it's a little warm still, we're just going to go ahead and scrape that ski. And again, we're working from tip to tail. And we want to take all the wax off of this as much as we can, because like I was saying, we're trapping the wax in the base of the ski, actually in the black P-Tex here. So we don't really need any wax up on top of this ski here. We're going to scrape it all off. And I kind of just take the edge of the scraper, get some of the wax off the side of the ski here. Then they make, these are called pin tools, and they're just made to sort of clear the wax out of the little grooves. If it's a small groove, there's little small heads on them. If it's a bigger, rounder groove, then we can use the bigger one. And we just kind of go through and get that wax out of those little grooves there. Now, not only does the P-Tex have those pores in there, but there's also a thing that is built into the P-Tex on most skis, which is called structure. And then that means, let's see if we've got a ski. That means in the P-Tex, not only is there the fact that it's porous, but if you look down a ski, you'll see that there's actually either a little patterns or little grooves all the ways down the ski. I don't know if you've ever seen that before, but if you look at this ski, not only will you see sort of a pattern on there, you'll see like little grooves in that ski. And what that does is when the snow's wet, you want to have more grooves in the ski, because what happens to the ski if you don't have little grooves in there, not that it won't glide, it will, it just won't glide as well. It's like taking a piece of paper, maybe putting it on some water and trying to lift it up, it'll create a suction. But if you put little grooves in it, it will break that suction, so it'll allow that ski to glide better through the water. As snow gets colder, there's not as much water in the snow, so our grooves become finer and finer and finer. Because as we're skiing, it's creating friction and also that static electricity. And actually, as we're skiing, we're actually kind of making heat on the bottom of this ski. And that's why we got to kind of have what we call a structure in there to let that ski breathe and glide a little bit smoother. So that's why at this point here, then, if we were just leave the ski like this now, we filled in all of those little structure marks. So what we want to do now is we want to go with a brush and clean out all of that structure in there, all those little grooves. And again, we work from tip to tail. And you can see how much more wax we're picking up. And things that you can really never do too much of on a ski, it's kind of like hand lotion to the ski, is a nice warm wax, the plastic scraper, and a nylon brush. Your ski just loves that. The more you do that, the faster that ski is going to be in the long run, the better that P-Tex is going to hold other waxes, and it just, again, it's just like hand lotion for a ski. Okay. Now as waxes either get harder or waxes become more fluorinated, we can use different brushes on them because they have different stiffnesses. Even though this is a horsehair and you think it's very soft, it's really in its own way very, very stiff. So let's see if we were to use that. See how I had gotten to the point where I had taken out all the wax with that nylon brush? But now I go back through it with this horsehair brush, and it's taking out even more because it's a finer bristle and it's a stiffer bristle. And it just sort of opens that ski up even more. As a final coating to kind of go back through and clean it up a little bit more, there's another product called Fibertex. It's kind of like a Brillo pad. And this would sort of be your finishing layer. And we take this then, and again, this is kind of like the final polish that really makes the ski glide even a little bit nicer now. So if we've left anything in here with our brushes where that's still kind of scratchy on there, we take this Fibertex now, and again working from tip to tail, just kind of go down through that. And that would sort of finish the ski off there, and it'd be pretty much ready to go. Do you have any questions? We can go over, different types of waxes, different colors of waxes, what temperature ranges we use these in. So if anyone has any questions, Alana?
Brian, so you mentioned about the higher fluorinated wax, the lower fluorinated wax, how the higher the fluor wax is, the more it repels water. Are there conditions that you would want to use the higher fluorinated wax in, and what are those? You're
always going to find that the higher fluorinated waxes are going to make your ski faster. But where it's going to work the best is on a wetter snow, where there's more water in it. Because again, then the fluorinated wax is going to really shed that water. When we go to a colder snow type, it doesn't have as much water in it, so it doesn't have as much suction to it, so it doesn't really need the fluoro content quite as much. Is it going to make a difference? Yes. But in the warmer waxes, it's going to make much faster ski for you.